Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday morning, August the 19th. A very nice air mass, cool and crisp air mass is headed for the Great Lakes, the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S., primarily for that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday time frame. It'll be a touch of fall, places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City during that three-day stretch with really the lowest temperatures in the overnight hours that we've experienced so far this season. Many areas in the Mid-Atlantic region, for example, will drop into the 40s both early Wednesday morning and early Thursday morning with this influx of Canadian air. Before we talk about that particular change coming, we'll take a look at the tropical scene. Indeed, we have Hurricane Ernesto. It actually regained some strength in the past 12 to 24 hours or so. It had dropped to tropical storm status, but again, it has regained some strength into Category 1 hurricane status, located right here in the North Atlantic. It will continue to move in this fashion over the next 24 to 48 hours or so. This is Nova Scotia right here, Newfoundland right here. It does not make a direct impact on either one of those Canadian maritime provinces. It did move past Puerto Rico and then a general north direction towards Bermuda over the weekend. It did intensify in this part of the Atlantic Ocean. The highest maximum sustained winds that I saw this weekend were about 100 miles per hour. That's Category 2 status. 110 is required for Cat 3. I don't think it ever made it to Cat 3, but again, Cat 2 here and had a big impact on Bermuda. And then weakened to tropical storm status right here. But as we mentioned last week, a strong upper level trough moving in from the west has interacted with Ernesto and basically helped it to regain some strength into its current Category 1 hurricane status. Weakening will begin later today, or especially tonight, as it continues to move out into the North Atlantic. Now notice, nothing on the heels here. We talked about a couple possible waves last week. They both have fallen apart. Looks like generally a quiet period in the Atlantic Basin for the next week to 10 days or so. Perhaps the next area we'll have to look again for some tropical activity will be the Gulf of Mexico down the road here. And we'll focus in on that possibility over the next week to 10 days or so. Now let's maintain this tropical outlook here, this tropical discussion. Let's look at the latest sea surface temperature anomalies. We do have continuing La Nina conditions in the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. By no means is it a strong La Nina. It looks like currently a weak to moderate La Nina right now. It will continue to exist for the next several weeks, continuing to have an impact on the overall tropical season, both in the Pacific Basin and the Atlantic Basin. A couple of areas of interest I want to monitor here over the next several weeks. Notice in the North Pacific, cooler than normal waters. Similarly in the North Atlantic, cooling the normal waters showing up here. And that actually can help to invigorate the tropical scene here as we go into the month of September. Whenever you have kind of a bipolar sea surface temperature pattern in the Atlantic or the Pacific, with colder water to the north and warmer water to the south, as we currently have, that tends to kind of focus the energy into the tropical region, and it can lead to an enhanced amount of activity in the tropical areas of the Atlantic and the Pacific. And so we'll kind of monitor these sea surface temperature patterns as we flip from August into September. Again, the next maybe week to 10 days or so looks to be rather quiet in the Atlantic Basin, but likely becoming quite active during the month of September. Well, before we leave the tropical scene, let's take a look at the ACE index. This is captured by the Colorado State University website here. Accumulated cyclone energy. That is probably the best way to measure overall tropical activity, as it takes into account not only the magnitude of each individual tropical storm, but the duration of the tropical systems as well. We have it broken apart into different parts of the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean as well. First of all, on an overall basis, below normal right now across the northern hemisphere. That's this bottom line here, this top part of this table here. 115, the accumulated cyclone energy, that's as opposed to the normal for this time of the year of 194, so pretty much well below normal across the northern hemisphere. Now, the reason we're below normal, the Pacific Ocean is rather quiet here. We look at both the Northeast Pacific and Northwest Pacific, both of which are below normal for this time of the year. We're into the third week of August right now. The Pacific Ocean has been relatively quiet. The Pacific Ocean is the most important ocean due to its size in terms of overall global activity. So when the Pacific Ocean is below normal, chances are in the northern hemisphere will be below normal. In fact, the Atlantic Ocean, the Atlantic Basin is well above normal right now. We've had 5 named storms so far. I believe I predicted something like 15 or 16, which is far below a lot of other forecasts out there for as much as I saw forecasts as much as 30 named storms this season. Still early. I hope I'm right. It's still way too early to crow about that forecast for sure, because we have all of September to go through and October as well. But right now, 5 named storms in the Atlantic Basin, enough to put the ACE index well above normal for the North Atlantic. But again, Northern Hemisphere on the whole, below normal for this time of the year into the third week of August. Well, let's get back to the continental U.S., and this is the latest radar loop from the College of DuPage weather website. We're looking at the Great Lakes, the Northeast, and first of all, a couple things to point out. There was some tremendous rainfall in the overnight hours, places like Connecticut all the way down to Long Island. You can still see some thunderstorm activity and heavy shower activity down across southern New England. So that had, again, some very heavy rainfall in the overnight hours. There's certainly some heavy rainfall throughout the Mid-Atlantic region in the evening and the afternoon on Sunday. You can almost see cold frontal system right here, and this is indeed a kind of a secondary cold frontal system that will cause scattered afternoon and evening thunderstorms in the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S. I don't expect it to be nearly as widespread as yesterday, but there can be some strong thunderstorms involved here. Again, this is kind of a secondary cold frontal system, and the much more comfortable air mass moves in behind that from northwest to southeast, first reaching the Great Lakes and then the Mid-Atlantic region on Tuesday. And again, a touch of fall here on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday throughout this part of the nation. Well, let's in fact take a look at the temperature anomaly pattern here at 850 millibars from last night's 0Z run of the GFS, and here is that cooler than normal air mass as we begin the day here on Monday, August the 19th. We'll move forward here, and following the passage of that next cold frontal system, a much more comfortable, much cooler than normal air mass flows into the Great Lakes and the Mid-Atlantic Northeast U.S. Really will be a difference when you walk out the door tomorrow morning as compared to this morning in places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, and it gets even more fall-like by tomorrow night. There actually will be another cold frontal system, maybe the third one in the series here, ushering in this chilly air mass by the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday. Well, many areas in the Mid-Atlantic region with overnight lows in the 40s for the first time this season, while the eastern half of the nation enjoys a lot cooler than normal conditions. Here we are by late tomorrow night, early Wednesday. It does turn quite hot. Much of the Central Plains and Rocky Mountain states will have hotter than normal conditions for the bulk of this week, while the eastern U.S. enjoys this taste of fall here. Again, here we go now into Thursday. Beautiful air mass still in place across the Great Lakes, Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S., all the way into the second half of the week. But again, hotter than normal conditions, especially over Texas here by the middle part of this week. They'll have quite hot conditions across Texas, but also across much of the plains and the Rocky Mountain states. Here we go into the late hours on Thursday and finally into Friday morning. Now, this cooler than normal air mass starts to kind of push off the eastern seaboard, but that will be after a beautiful Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Still hanging on Friday. Notice a lot of cooler than normal air out across the west coast area, California, up to Oregon and Washington by the end of the week. But again, the plains, Rocky Mountains, expect a lot of hotter than normal conditions later this week. Well, let's wrap up with the surface forecast maps. And again, we've mentioned we've had kind of one frontal passage right here that is now sitting right along the East Coast that helped to contribute to that very heavy rainfall, for example, in the overnight hours in southern New England, right in this area, in Long Island, and also the strong to severe thunderstorms yesterday in the Mid-Atlantic region. But there'll be another front that kind of can see it right here on this isobar pattern, and that will be really that's the front that ushers in that cool air mass for the northeastern states. Here we go by midday, and then there'll be kind of a scattered afternoon showers and thunderstorms along that second frontal system, which at this time will be right about in this region right here. I do not expect as widespread of coverage for the showers and thunderstorms later today, but there can be some strong thunderstorm activity despite it not being as widespread as yesterday. And then by the time we get to later on tonight into tomorrow morning, that's when the big change will occur in the Mid-Atlantic, in the Northeast U.S. This whole entire part of this area here will have very, very nice weather conditions Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, even going into Friday. The nice air mass hangs on across much of the Mid-Atlantic region. But again, out in this part of the nation, it does get hotter than normal. Now, let's move forward in time here, kind of clear the page here. This is Tuesday morning. Here we go into Wednesday morning. Be absolutely some 40s across the Mid-Atlantic region early Wednesday morning, maybe low 40s. Places like northeastern PA, the coolest temperatures of the season so far. This is kind of the peak of this cool spell will be probably early Wednesday morning in much of the Mid-Atlantic region, with the lowest overnight temperatures during this stretch. We'll move forward here. Again, that high pressure area, that cool air mass hangs on right through the day on Thursday, but a lot of hot air flows right in this area, right into the Central Plains from the Gulf of Mexico. Texas will undergo quite a hot stretch for the middle part of this week. But again, by the end of the week, California, Oregon, Washington will enjoy some cooler than normal conditions. We'll go out a little farther in time here to the end of the week, and here's Thursday. Finally, by Friday morning, high pressure still hanging on over the Mid-Atlantic region with a beautiful air mass still in place. Cooler than normal conditions across the West Coast, but your hot weather, Texas, all the way up through the northern plains, and that'll also include Rocky Mountain states. So that's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Orian.